Okay, so thanks very much for inviting me. My name is, if anybody doesn't know, my name is Stephen Harper. I'm a lecturer in a civil and structural discipline. I'm a former civil engineer for many years, so I've been lecturing for a few years, and now have the privilege of working on this project, which is called EcoGT, because engineers communicating and collaborating internationally for the green transition. So I'm doing this together with Una Began since September last year, and TU Dublin is in a, let's say, like a consortium with other universities. So with the lead in Technicum Vienna, Lapland, Gdansk, Utah. I can't remember all of them. I can't read them all there. Portugal. I won't go through the list anyway. It's several universities across Europe, and the idea it is to develop well, to look at what the lacking in communication skills are for engineers. And so just before I kind of discuss about the project itself, I like to come bring this statistics, which is based on research which was done just over 100 years ago by the Carnegie Institute of Technology, which says like the success or whatever you perceive or whatever you consider success of an engineer or professional depends really only on 15% of their technical ability and 85% on their interpersonal skills, ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. And so that's not to say that technical skills are not important, of course, it's just saying that is more like a minimum. And I think any of us who have worked in the industry, you kind of know as well, as many projects that can really have the brakes put on them because of poor communication. And I suppose if you, in order to meet success, which I think all of these other research projects are finding, that it really is important to any professional working in the industry. So the objectives of this project are first, it's about the green transition, in which so understanding the communication demands on green transition engineers, and but what there's consensus, well, we think we all a lot of people agree is anybody working in the engineering industry is essentially working in the green transition industry anyway. So this applies to pretty much any engineering professional. These kind of communication skills that we're looking for, and then the next aim is the fact that to determine this lack in the industry of what are engineers missing in terms of their communication ability? What are the and then from that to then develop a curriculum and then to develop workshops and a competency matrix in order to kind of further improve courses, workshops in communication skills and what we find, and then to disseminate and create like a handbook. So that is the aim and objective of this roughly 3 year project in which we're nearly into the first year of it now. What's the first step? So where we are at the moment, we started in September and it's still a little bit slow going, but the first method of research is to have first focus groups with industry professionals. So each partner university has set up or is setting up currently now focus groups with different professionals and then different engineering disciplines, if you like, and depends on what their speciality is, not just focus on civil engineering. So in here in TU Dublin, myself and Nuna have run our three of our focus groups, which have been with building structure engineering professionals, civil infrastructure professionals, which is more towards like the roads, cycleways, any kind of civil infrastructure, and then water infrastructure engineering professionals, just to kind of get quite a broad range of mainly in the civil engineering sector, but to find out what their opinions are or what they think are the lacking in engineers that we in the sorry in the communication abilities that engineers have. So how this has been done in our focus group. So this is kind of a method has been developed in this. So it's what's called a systems visualization. So if you take an example of which is what an example we use in a focus group, which if you imagine the process of making toast, which you might think is a very simple process, except when you extrapolate it to everything else which goes into it, that process grows legs, and it can be you could argue it goes to the infinite basis. So you can start from planting the grains and then getting the grain, the wheat, making the flour, making the dough, and so on. So, and how would you think that throughout any of that process, what are all the communication skills or techniques that you would need to input into that? For example, the farmer who is selling his grain to making the flour, they have to negotiate a price, for example, and so on. and so if there's any about teams. So we've used that analogy to then to go to the professionals and say, okay, imagine one of your, as like a standard project which you would work on from start to finish. So imagine from conceptual design, from the very concept of this project right the way through. Imagine every single stage and get them then to create that's a visualization on the board. Okay, so you have every single stage. So in building structures or any civil engineering project, you have conceptual, you have feasibility, maybe have planning, public consultation, they have design, detail design, construction, maintenance, handover, all of those things. So, and then from that, once you have this kind of visualization in place, then start thinking about, okay, what are all of the communication abilities or skills or media that you would need in order to make that for every single stage. Okay, so we have like who communicates with who, what do they communicate, how do they communicate, all of these different methods. So we have like a huge array of different ability, different techniques which an engineer needs to be, I wouldn't say masterful, but at some kind of level of ability in order to function in the project. And so that's kind of where we're up to now. And then we've had our first 3 focus groups, and our findings have been so far, well, quite interesting. And it's been interesting to find from the different types of engineering practice, what are they saying? But mainly the main areas which are developing relationships. So that is developing relationship. If, for example, I used to work as an engineer, so I had direct relationship with another engineer, or had technicians, my boss, or even clients, and then third party, anybody else. So developing that relationships, they found that there's a lot of people really lacking in the ability of developing any kind of relationships. The big ones are, which we're all very, very familiar with, I'm sure, on a day-to-day basis, is email etiquette and phone calls. And that was a big one because we all were very aware of how widely used emails is used, and how poor some of that communication is a lot of time, or even just a simple thing of picking up a phone call. Who was just saying who was saying that the graduates in the first 2 years, there's a little bit of lacking confidence there, and I think they've found that there's just that confidence of picking up the phone and talking to someone. There's quite a block in there for a lot of people. So all of these, and it goes through listening skills, and for me, for what in my opinion, what I find is emotional intelligence almost kind of the fundamentals of all of this. So anyway, I won't go through every single part of this because I'm very aware of time. But these are the outputs that we're getting at the moment, and it's very interesting. It's coming in lines of what I've kind of a lot of us and in former industry professionals would think of. So the next step now is to take all of that information from our focus groups and all the other focus groups that other universities have done, and then develop curricula for competency matrix, develop courses, workshops, and then to start piloting in those course shops. And I'd say I'm already kind of on the way. I have already ideas of workshops which I'm starting to develop, having the bones of it, but that is in the next year or so, 2 years. And then ultimately, I think in 2 years' time, we'll have a summer school where we will deliver a lot of these courses that we've hopefully developed by then to willing volunteers who will be students, engineers, I say. And that will be it. And hopefully we'll be develop something quite interesting. So that's the end of it. So any questions, please